everybody, it's me, Jill, and welcome to Jill Informed. This is the recap of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 1, Episode 15, The Reunion Part 2. Okay, this is the second part of a 3-part reunion, and after some fluffing up and selfies and Andy telling the ladies that Lisa Rinna just texted him and said she was a huge fan, and they all went, "Oh." We dive right into Mary's story. Oh boy, guys, and what a story it is. This reminds me why Mary needs to be on this show. Listen, I don't know if she's ripping off her congregation or not. I know those rumors are out there. I know she has family members that are speaking out against her, saying that her grandmother left it all to her. But when she talks about her odor glands being attacked by her body, this is what we're here for. No, actually, listen, I thought this was crazy. She said her body was attacking her odor glands and it would start to eat her white blood cells and it was creating pussy boils, some the size of an egg. Ugh. Side note, when you have closed captioning on, pussy is spelled just like pussy. Unrelated, but a fun fact. So she said she had these boils over 70% of her body. And I looked up the condition that she said she had, which is hidradenitis. And she's exactly right. I didn't believe her. I said it. I didn't really believe Mary was telling the truth. It is absolutely a real thing. And it creates these boils. It sounds terrible. And surgery, yes, you can have surgery done if it's bad enough, but also it could maybe come back. There's no cure for it. I feel bad about that, not about the rest. Mary says her comments about Jen's aunt needing to drink more water and then maybe she wouldn't have had her legs amputated was said out of frustration and anger, and she does apologize for it. Jen says, that's the thing though, I didn't go to the hospital that day. And Andy's like, wait, what? There's your headline. Mary claims she still smelled hospital. She's like, well, okay, maybe you didn't go that day, but you still smelled like hospital. And guys, this is still my favorite Housewives argument. It gets an A for originality. Nobody has ever, not even on New Jersey, have they accused another woman of smelling like hospital. I love it. So Andy said, well, you had your odor glands removed, but you definitely still have a very strong sense of smell. Then we move on to the black guys outside of 7-Eleven. This is why Mary is a hot mess, but makes good TV. She said, I have a fear of a large group of guys outside of convenience stores. Okay, here's the thing. As a woman, that's a valid thing to be worried about, but it's such a specific, fear. That's what's strange. I'm not saying that if you as a woman got out of your car and there was a big group of guys in front of the door and you knew you had to walk through that group to get in, that's a very real thing, unfortunately, for women. I'm not saying that you wouldn't have some anxiety and a fear in the moment, but to say out of context when you're just sitting at home that's one of your fears, it's so oddly specific. And also, Andy asked her if it happened to her, and it didn't. So it isn't like she's drawing on, personal experience. I don't know. Anyway, when she was asked if it was specifically black guys, she said, no, my son is black. I'm black. But all the ladies say she admitted it was black guys at that luncheon that she had. She denies it. Roll footage. They actually do roll footage, and it's not crystal clear. She does kind of, she did say, yeah, I said that, but Meredith is actually trying to defend Mary, and she said, it was my interpretation that what Mary meant was she had a fear of sketchy people, not that this was a racial issue. So then Mary just basically throwing away that lifeline that Meredith just gave her, said, black guys are just not my taste. Oh, no, Mary. Why would you have to add that to the story? So Andy's like, you prefer white guys? Mary, mm-hmm. And he goes, well, you're married to a black guy. Mary, you guys, you know I'm not making this up, right? Mary goes, well, he's white. Robert Sr. is apparently white. I mean, okay, there's like, nobody is saying anything. And I think everybody's probably like feeling sort of the shock that we're all feeling. Confusion for sure, but then also shock. So now Lisa tries to bail Mary out. And she said, well, he's light, right? And I'm like, oh God, Lisa, don't touch this. Don't go near this. Mary goes, yeah, he's lighter. The camera pans to Whitney, who is like cringing, like we all are. So Mary is trying to clarify, and every time she does, she makes it worse by saying that it's just my preference. My preference is for lighter skin. But she doesn't think she's better than people with darker skin. Oh, God, just stop talking. But no, she doesn't. She then asks Jen, isn't your husband a racist? What? Where did that come from? Jen's like, what are you talking about? So Mary backs off. Oh, I was just asking. Like, I was just curious. Yeah, you were just putting it out there. These women are nuts. You can't just put things out there when you're on TV. I.e., The Real Housewives of New Jersey. I just recapped that earlier in the week. If you haven't seen it, I talk about this as it pertains to Jackie and Teresa. Oh, my God, ladies. Mary just ends by saying, I just want to be clear. I love all black men. Yeah. As long as their skin is light, right? I mean, that is just this double layer of discrimination against black people with darker skin color. It's, okay, moving on. Jen apologizes for the Mary F's her grandfather comment. But according to Heather, there's a lot of stuff that Jen posts on social media after the fact. So she's not buying the like heat of the moment argument that Jen is trying to say, well, I was drunk and also I was angry. Yeah, if way after the fact you're posting things about it, then the heat of the moment excuse kind of goes out the window. Getting to the bottom of the who's afraid of Virginia Shaw, Mary admits that it was just her that thought that Meredith and Lisa were afraid of Jen. They didn't tell Mary. That's just Mary's assessment of the situation. Well, that's a little different, Mary, because that's not what Whitney took from it. Whitney thought that those two women actually told you they were afraid of Jen, and that's what she reported back to Jen, and that's what started this whole thing. Lisa and Heather get into another fight. Lisa wants to know, and rightly so, I would have to say, why Whitney was so excited and happy to tell Jen that she and Meredith were afraid of her. We actually get flashbacks that show Lisa actually saying she's absolutely not afraid of Jen. So that time roll footage would have worked in Lisa's favor. Lisa gives Whitney and Heather the couple's name Weather because they're like bad weather, like a tornado, spinning the truth and then destroying. Oh my God. I mean, I guess it's better than Hitney, but marginally. Heather lets us know that Lisa also created the hashtag Janisa for her and Jen. Weather believes that Lisa is only a good friend to herself. And Andy said, what about Meredith? And Meredith goes, 100%. Heather goes, oh, she's been a shitty friend to Meredith. And Meredith is like, I'm not sure what's going on here. Lisa, to Heather, said, "You could not wait to get on camera and talk about my friend's marriage. You're a disgusting human being." Heather mishears Lisa when she says that Heather needs therapy other than Andy Cohen. She thinks that she said that nobody likes her other than Andy Cohen. So Heather goes, "Nobody likes me other than Andy Cohen? Well, I'm going to take that side of the fence every day." Andy goes, "Oh, thanks." Oh, God. Not about you, Andy. Lisa corrects her, though, and said, "No, I said therapist other than Andy Cohen because you say you can talk to Andy." And Andy goes, "Well, I'm a good therapist, too." Again, not about you, Andy. Meredith, "May I speak?" And Andy goes, "Yeah, of course." "I would like to make something abundantly clear. The next one of you who says anything about my family in any way, shape, or form, you are not my friend." Mary goes, "Thank you." "Well, okay." Andy goes, "Okay, Mary, a lot of talk on social media about your marriage." Okay, so we won't talk about your marriage, Meredith. Let's talk about Mary's. Anyway, he reads a viewer question. Logan from Roy, Utah wants to know, is there a will from your grandmother saying that she wanted you to marry her husband? Mary, no, there are no receipts. And she says, my grandmother told me that she wanted me to take her place. Well, maybe not in every aspect of her life. Anyway, Andy said, and she told that to Robert too, right? Mary goes, no. We prayed about it for 2 years, and then we felt like it was God's will. Okay, this is an ever-changing story. Andy goes, I thought you said your grandmother said she wanted you to replace her. And Mary goes, so Robert was 20 years younger than my grandmother, and she felt like she robbed him of his youth. So she said, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to be with one of my girls. Okay, let me stop for 1 second. That's the second time I heard that, like, the grandmother had these wishes, if anything ever happens to me. It's not like she had these wishes because she had cancer and was dying. Does anybody know how her grandmother died? Because I don't think she was that old, number one. Number two, I mean, I'm not implying that anyone offed her, but, like, it just all seems a little shady that she made all these wishes. If anything ever happens to me and then something happens to her, that just feels a little scary. I don't know, maybe I'm watching too much TV. So then Andy says, well, it seems like it would have been more appropriate for your mother to marry him then. Mary goes, but she already put everything in my hands. Oh my God, Mary, if that's true, like, you still could have let your mom marry Robert. Okay, then we move on to how her second cousin cleans her house. And she said, yeah, she and her mother, my aunt, they both clean, her great aunt and her daughter. You know what? I'm fine with that. Mary said that in exchange, she pays their rent on their apartment. And I don't know, I think you would be surprised how often stuff like that happens in families where, like, one person in the family has a lot more wealth than everybody else. And then they kind of, you know, like, people do that, like celebrities do that, where, like, they make jobs for their siblings and stuff like that. I don't know. It's not like she's locking them in the basement and making them clean her house. Let me know in the comments if that bothers you, that she has family members that, you know, clean for her and take care of her house. It doesn't bother me. Oh, here's a fun fact. Mary and Robert Sr. are 18 years apart, exactly the same as Whitney and her husband, Justin. I mean, I guess because he was married to her grandmother, that made it more absurd. But when you think of it in terms of, like, 18 years apart, that's not outrageous. How is this not seeming so bad to me anymore? This whole Mary and her grandpa thing. Am I, like, getting on board with it? We also find out that Mary was married before, but she denies that she left that man to marry her grandfather. That was, she and her first husband had irreconcilable differences and they divorced. It had nothing whatsoever to do with Robert Sr. Andy asks the cringy question, are you two still physical? I really wish Mary would have just said, yeah, that's none of your business. But she looked very uncomfortable and she was struggling with how she wanted to answer. And finally she said, well, not for the past few years, no. And then Andy asked if he sleeps in his own bedroom, and she said yes. Side note, just like Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. My husband and I are binging The Crown right now, so I just had that thought in my head. Okay, this is making me sad. Mary is crying right now because she wants to make it clear that she has a good marriage. Said, I just want everyone to know I have a beautiful marriage. Robert Sr. bought all her designer clothes. Okay, now I'm cringing. Are you equating a beautiful marriage to the fact that he buys you Valentino? I mean, what does one thing have to do with the other? Then she goes on to say that marriages are hard and they're horrible. They can be a nightmare. They don't have to be. I feel like right now Mary is turning off every girl who's dreaming of getting married. No. I don't know. I just don't think we need to turn everybody off from marriage. Okay, so we addressed the rumors that Mary uses church congregation money to fund her lavish lifestyle. And this is funny. She goes, no, that's absurd. My church couldn't afford me. She's probably right, but I'm like, oh God. She denies using funds from the church. I mean, she doesn't need to though, right? She's got all the other stuff. There are restaurants and like real estate and other businesses and everything. I don't think she really does need to rob the church blind. I'm not saying she doesn't, guys. I don't know. I don't read everything out there about her. I'm just saying there's money from other places. If she really inherited everything that her grandmother had, I don't think she needs the money from the church. I don't know. Whatever. Moving on. Oh, I am so naive. Of course, Robert Sr., as Mary's grandmother's husband, he inherited everything. So, duh, Jill, yeah, of course she had to marry him. That's how she acquired everything, because it really wasn't written down in the will. And the only way she really could claim it all as hers is if she married Robert Sr. That also explains why her mom wanted to marry Robert Sr., because when her grandmother died, Robert Sr. became very wealthy and therefore more attractive. A viewer asks if Mary and Jen could ever just let bygones be bygones. And Jen said, yes, of course. And then Mary, eventually, she agrees too. So I don't know. You know, I keep saying they were friends before the show started. So maybe. Okay, now it's Heather's turn. I wonder if we're going to address Billy's health. Do you guys feel like her ex-husband, Billy, he's so thin and he looks so different from the pictures of them when they were married? I mean, he looks like he lost 100 pounds. Who knows? He could be on keto. I think he looks like he's sick. But nobody's ever said anything, so I could be wrong, but also it could just be that they don't want to talk about it. Okay, Whitney talks about how Heather has changed for the better and how great she is and that she doesn't see it in herself. And then we find out that Whitney didn't meet Heather until after Heather was divorced. And Andy goes, but you two are cousins. Yeah, they are. But they didn't know they were cousins until they were friends first. And they figured it out. I don't know. Maybe this is common in the Mormon community because there's so many cousins. I don't know. Okay, now Heather is crying. She says she didn't think that anybody would relate to her, relate to the hot mess that she is. But she has gotten so many emails and people have been reaching out to her since she's been on the show, and it's been very healing for her. We talk about what her daughters see on the show and how she acts, and she said, I want my daughters to be wild. I want them to have multiple partners. I want them to be wild and free and live. just live their life out loud. I mean, I think I know what she means, but she is saying it in a kind of a provocative way. And Mary looks horrified, especially when she said she wanted them to have multiple partners. Okay, moving on a bit. This is fun. We find out that Lisa is the one that recommended Heather for the show. Heather, didn't you guys think, maybe it was just me. Did you guys get the impression that Heather was sort of like the main focus of the show and that these were like women that were friends with her that she knew, but like it was kind of about Heather? No. Apparently, Lisa was cast first. But anyway, Heather brings that up because Heather's trying to make the point that if you didn't know me like you claimed, I barely remember her. Why did you recommend me for the show? So Lisa pulls out her phone and she's like, Andy, do you want to see this? And he's like, no, I believe you. So we see texts between them. She said, I met her in 2007. And I can't remember what the texts say, but it proves that. Andy moves on to Heather, thinking that Jen was kind of dumping her for Meredith and Lisa, and always having that feeling that people are kind of trading up, leaving her. Heather basically has PTSD from leaving the Mormon church. That's what it really is. Once that happened, she said she lost a lot of very good friends because they didn't want to associate with her anymore because she was a divorced woman. So she just said that I was feeling raw and I felt inferior, and Jen denies that and said, absolutely not. I would never leave you for them or anything like that. Okay, the conversation kind of develops into Lisa manipulating Jen into attacking the ladies on social media. Heather said that Jen has pretty much attacked everyone except for Lisa. And I don't know, Heather is accusing Lisa of being the mastermind behind that. And Lisa thinks it's ridiculous. That's insane to imply that I have the time for that. So now Whitney said, Lisa didn't think I deserved to be on the show. She came after me time and time again. Okay, so Andy breaks for lunch. Or I thought that's what he said. I'm hungry. People are saying they're hungry. And he goes, all right, this is a good time to take a break. But there's like 10 minutes left to the show. So I'm wondering what the heck is going to go on here. As they're getting like de-mic'd and getting up, Jen leaves. Lisa says, Heather, I know you now. I didn't know you before 2017. Heather accuses Lisa of choosing Jen Shah over Meredith. And Lisa's like, never. Poor Jen. Lisa goes on to say that to Heather that they can move forward or they can move backward, and she's willing to move forward. And Heather's like, I don't know if I want to move forward, honestly. And she's kind of being dismissive and looking at her phone. Andy's sitting there scrolling on his phone. That pisses Lisa off, of course. And she's like, oh, okay, well, good for you. Just don't get involved in my other friendships. And Heather's like, I don't want to put a wedge between you and Meredith. Believe me, I feel like she's taken enough hits. God. The bickering just kind of goes on and on. Honestly, I don't think they needed to film all this. It's a big fight, mostly between Heather and Lisa. It definitely feels like those two will never be friends again. I don't know how they're going to film next year together. But it's also between Whitney and Lisa, because Whitney and Heather are definitely tight. And I believe that Whitney and Heather are trying to turn Meredith against Lisa. I believe they really and truly are trying to put a wedge between the two of them. But to her credit, Meredith won't do that. Okay, now I'm confused because Lisa now walks away and Andy goes, well, where's she going now? Is she coming back? And I'm thinking that they were going to lunch, but apparently not, because the break is over and now he wants everybody to sit back down again. Anyway, this is where part 2 ends. And so they keep saying there's a lot more to talk about. Next week, the husbands are joining, so we have that to look forward to. And that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for being here. As always, if you liked this recap, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more content like this, please subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of this episode. And quickly before I go, I just want to mention those of you in Texas, I'm thinking of you all the time. I hope that you are staying warm and safe and fed and have water to drink. And I hope that by the time this airs, you have all the things that you need and you are on the other side of this and things are getting better. I mentioned this in my New Jersey video, but if any of you need to talk, need to vent, I can't imagine having to deal with this on top of the pandemic and everything else that we've been dealing with already. I talked about how I feel like we as a society were just expected to keep absorbing hit after hit. And sometimes you just can't do that. So if you feel like you need to talk, you can DM me on Instagram or Twitter, or you can email me, jillinformed@gmail.com. If you just need someone to talk to or yell at or whatever, if you need to just get it out. I don't know. I was just trying to think of something I could do to make it better. There are various charities that are providing aid to those who need it the most. There's lots of options out there if you want to help in that way, but just know I'm thinking about you guys. All right, that's it for me. As always, wash your hands often, wear a mask, stay safe. I love you guys. Bye.